All right, let's go. Rod Palin here tonight, 3rd of July. So welcome to Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. The reason why we're doing a call tonight was actually an off night on our schedule. And was it Memorial Day, Rod?
It was Memorial Day, yeah.
Yeah, so we took Memorial Day off a month or two ago, and it felt like such a gap that we didn't have something going on. And then we had some technical difficulties the following week on Zoom. So we lost 2 weeks. So I just told Rod, I said, there's no way I want to skip a week. If I can do it, I want to do it. And at least bring some value or just some reminders, even if it is the night before the holiday. If you're listening in, which I'm sure a lot of you will be, thanks for listening. What we're going to talk about tonight is Rod and I are going to tag team family values and being an entrepreneur and what's important about that. Brendan, good to see you. Glad you're on tonight too. So Rod, here's the thing. What made me think about this, not only the holiday, but also just being an entrepreneur, we spend so much time focused on our business. And oftentimes our loved ones become secondary, or we don't think about, what they're going through or what they're doing or make them a priority. And so I wanted tonight to be a good reminder of, hey, don't forget about your family when you're an entrepreneur. And maybe we can toss, a couple ideas back and forth on how we incorporate our family. By the way, that doesn't just mean if you're married, your wife and your kids. If you're not married, that means your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your best friend or your parents or whatever your situation is. We all have people in our lives that play an important role to not only our health, but to our success just in general. So I think it's important to consider all aspects of your relationships as it relates to being an entrepreneur. But here's what got me rolling on this topic. And that's this book, Prepared, by Mike Glover. So if you haven't read this book, I would highly recommend it. And if you don't know who Mike is, he's the founder, CEO of Fieldcraft Survival. And he got a little bit of a bad rap, of course, in the leftard media about him being a survivalist and, anti-government and whatever that looked like. And they tried to paint him as a bad guy, that he was a troublemaker. Where the reality is he's a veteran of 20 plus years, and he just wants families to be prepared for whatever. Now, he talks about in the beginning of the book how those survivalist shows or those hoarder shows or all those shows about these whack jobs going off the grid gave being prepared a bad name. And what was really important about what he talked about, and it goes right in this topic, is being prepared for your family and your community, whatever that looks like your neighborhood, your community, your surrounding friends and neighbors, and what you can do for them collectively. So, Rod, you have an incredible list. Like I'll just call it survival list of items that you feel like you should have. But what inspired you to create that list? And and do you still use it?
Well, actually, thanks, Jim. You inspired me to create the list because you asked what kind of things I had, and I said, well, I have a list. It was a mental list, but I never had it written down. So I wrote it down for you, and it's been years in the making. And this is something I will tell you. I knew from the time I was a young kid, probably 8, 9 years old, that I was a survivor, right? And I didn't have a relationship with family, right? I came from a large family, but it was just there was no emotional connection with my family. I've talked about that before. So I was a loner, right? I was a loner in my family, and I was a loner. I kind of grew up as a loner, and I found my way into all these different groups, but I was never a part of a group. Mm-hmm. I attached myself to lots of different groups, and I fit into all those different groups, but I was never a part of them. So I've always been that sort of outsider. And so I've always felt like I needed to be prepared for anything and everything. And that was, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, be prepared, right? That was the thing. So I a lot of it's just common sense, but reading to my children, and that kind of gets into tonight's topic too, family time. Reading to my children, we read them things like Little House on the Prairie and all the great books. You know, we read to our children every night without fail. We read them books, and even when they were, you know, older, they liked us reading to them. So we were reading things like Hatchet and My Side of the Mountain. Those were books that I liked, right? And Old Yeller, and you know, that sort of thing. So part of it is just I've always had an affinity to be close to the earth and be able to survive without all the society, technology, all the things that we think we need. And so that really is what inspired it. And so I'm prepared. I mean, if we had a power outage, and we, you know, I grew up in Eastern Montana, we had severe storms, and we did have power outages. Once I can remember for over a week with no power in the winter. And, you know, we got through that, you know, and I was a young man at the time, but it left an impression. So just being prepared. But I want my kids to be prepared. I want my grandkids to be prepared. I want the next generation to be prepared. So that's my impetus now, is that list just gets bigger and bigger. You know, what tools do you need?
So what's interesting, or what does this, you know, preparedness have to do with being in business, being an entrepreneur, and the importance of your family? So I'm going to give a good example. I told Rod before we went live this story about me working at Kettle One. So I was at Kettle One Vodka for 10 years. And if you don't know the company, they've been around since 1691. They were over 300 years old, 11 generations of family members that have ran that company out of Schiedam, Holland. And they've always produced spirits over there. Now, interesting story, during World War II, one of the things about Kettle One Vodka, and nobody really knows why, but it's a part of the family recipe, is that after they distill the vodka, they put it in tile-lined tanks underground. And then they seal those tanks off. And they let it rest for an undetermined amount of time. They didn't tell us, right? It's their little family secret. Whatever it is, it's underground, tile-lined tanks, sealed off. Now, World War II is, you know, we're in the midst of that. The Germans are coming to take over Holland, and the owners of Kettle One Vodka, they cover up those tile-lined tanks with dirt, because I guess they're outside of the facility, right? So now they've got these tanks covered up in dirt, and the Germans come and literally take over the distillery and live there during World War II. And I think they said it was almost 3 years. Now, what's interesting about that, and when you talk about preparedness, is that when the war was over, Kettle One Vodka, or in Dutch, Ketelijn, was the first distillery to be able to bottle and sell alcohol directly after World War II. And the reason why is because all they did is uncovered those tile-lined tanks, opened up the hatches, and they were able to bottle up the vodka that they'd been storing there. And what's really cool about that is they were prepared for something to happen as it related to their business. They had a solution, right? And so that's what I love about this book, is it talks about preparedness for yourself, for your family, for your community. Now, fast forward all these years to the pandemic and COVID, and looking at maybe what you did in your own circumstance during COVID, and how prepared were you to fight that fight, whatever that looked like for you, right? Whether that was survival, keeping your family healthy, making money, getting groceries, you know, avoiding whatever. I mean, I know what it looked like for me. And I chose at the beginning of COVID that I wasn't going to, my language, I wasn't going to participate in that pandemic. And I was going to ramp up my efforts, just like I talk about during the holiday, you know, season, like ramp up your efforts when everybody else is off, like pick your days. And I was going to ramp up my efforts through COVID. But it's because I was prepared in my business, in my life, in my schedule, and how I managed all those things together, to take advantage or make the best of a terrible situation, right? So that's how I look at preparedness as it relates to business. So, Ryan, I don't know, do you have a story similar or in a different way where you took on, the challenges because you were ready for it?
Well, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is I've always had a side hustle.
Yeah.
Even when I was working for someone else, I always was looking for another thing to do, another business to get involved in, another something to do. That's what got me into network marketing, right? I wanted to have another business. I wanted to have stability. If something went south, if I changed my mind, if the business went out of business, whatever, I didn't want my future to be in the hands of somebody else. It's that survival mentality. And so just having supplemental income and residual income, I always wanted residual income. That's what everyone's goal is, right? That's, money coming in without you having to do anything. So I wanted residual income, and to get that, I needed supplemental income. Mm-hmm. And so that always kept me looking. I was never just so busy doing one thing that I forgot that I was looking bigger than that. And it's mindset and it's attitude. And part of it is that preparedness. And I think it makes you a better business person too. You start looking at all the things that could go wrong. That doesn't mean you're a negative. I'm very positive, right? You see, I'm on the forefront of positivity, but I am well aware of all the reality that's out there. And that's not good. And it's not in favor of business. If you just look at the statistics, it's not in your favor. So you constantly have to be doing something to give yourself an edge. And those are those nano movements. It's not necessarily always big moves. It's those nano movements. And the first nano movement is just saying, hey, what's going on, right? What's going on with the political, economic portion of this? What's going on locally? What's the long-term forecast? And then you start paying attention to politics and who's in charge and what's that trickle-down effect going to be there, right? And it makes you a better business person. It makes you a better person. It makes you a better provider for your family. And, it's exhilarating. Gosh, did I just say that? I don't mind it, yeah. Right? In fact, I'm going to tell a quick story. I was at the doctor's office last Friday and got some issues going on. And the nurse says, what about stress? What's your stress like? And I looked at her and I literally said, I don't, what's the nature of your question? I said, I don't have stress. I literally, and I thought, I came home and I didn't think about it at the time, but I came home and I told my wife, I said, this is one of the questions they asked with all their stuff. And it was about stress. And I had to say, I don't have any. I don't have economic stress. I don't have business stress. I don't have spiritual stress. I just don't, it's something that is not a part of who I am right now. And that was not always the case, right? I mean, I went from stress to stress level to, I have been stressed out. I have been there. And it has taken a long time to be able to subdue that monster. And it's on every front. But I don't care what happens with the economy. I don't care what happens with the weather. I don't care what happens with the job market. I don't care what happens with, if there's a nuclear meltdown. If this is the last day of my life, the last thing I said to my wife and each one of my kids was that I loved them. And they said that to me. That I can check out today and I don't have any worries. I don't have any stress. And if everyone could get to that point, and yet I still wake up charged up, ready to go, looking forward to tomorrow. So I'm not checked out. I'm checked forward. And it's a great place to be.
Right. It's a perfect segue as we kind of lead into the family and as it relates to business. Hi, Rachel, by the way, see you there. But real quick, Rod mentioned politics. And one of the things I love listening to Andy Frisella on his podcast, The Real AF, he has his CEO shows, he's got his 75 Hard shows, but once in a while he talks about politics. And he says, if you're going to be in business, you better understand the politics of the country and the world Otherwise, you're not going to succeed in business. So I appreciate that you brought up briefly, Rod, what's going on in politics and having awareness there. We're not going to dive into that here, but I do think it's very important that you understand the politics of the country so that you can ebb and flow in your own business and take advantage of those cycles for your own, good and success. So going back to Rod talking about stress and this book, Preparedness, is one of the things Mike talks about in this book is having your storage of supplies. Okay, you've got your supply room. I've got mine. I've got my guns. I got my ammo. I've got my food storage. I got my water and all those things. And what I love that he said in here, and I never thought about it this way, he says, look, you need to make that space and your storage of extra stuff as comfortable and as normal as possible to your family. Don't make it that secret dark room that it's, in case of doomsday, we're going to pull supplies out of there. No, he talks about it being a comfortable environment where you get in the routine of rotating first in, first out your food supplies, your medical supplies, and all those other things so that you're not creating a fear within your family for doomsday or the big event, whatever that civil unrest, whatever that looks like. And so what I like about that metaphor as it relates to business is that as entrepreneurs, I think our first line of defense for our family members and those people that we care about is that we don't create this doomsday atmosphere of, oh my God, I'm trying to make a living here, I'm trying to make money, and I'm trying, and all of a sudden the fear factor of your whole family is wrapped into you being an entrepreneur and your success, right? So I really think we need to be cautious and cognizant of the effects that we have on our family as we go through our daily lives as entrepreneurs, because not everybody that we're associated with has the same mental strength and capabilities that we do to digest, analyze, and move forward. And the risk that we're willing to take as entrepreneurs are to make these moves. Not everybody has that, right? So I don't want to say we have to buffer and hide, but let's have a little bit of a gut check on what we share, how we share it, and our willingness to keep that family environment happy. Rod, you've worked for yourself for a really long time. What are some of the things that you've done to buffer your family from some of those ups and down stresses?
Well, I think the number one thing that I'll say, this is my parenting advice. If I can offer anybody anything here, maybe it's because my kids have turned out. Okay, so that's it. What I recommend, and it's business principles as well. You need constants. We've talked about this before. Rachel, you've talked about it with marketing. You've talked about it with scheduling, right? You need constants. Your children and the people that work for you need constants as well. The worst environments, the worst family environments are the ones where the kids never know what they're walking into, or the employees never know what they're walking into. Man, is the manager going to be in a good mood today? Is the boss going to be, what are we walking into, right? They need consistency, because consistency creates stability, and stability is the breeding ground for confidence. And that's what we need for our children. It's what our families need, and it's what our employees need. It's what our staff needs. It's what our business partner needs. So we need to be constant and stable. We need our emotions under control. We need to not be fearful, Jim. It's like you said, it's being prepared is part of what we do. Our businesses should have a little slush fund, right? My family, what do they say? You should have 6 months of emergency cash on hand, right? Well, what about your business? Are you doing that for your business? If there was a downturn, is your business going to be able to survive? Right? The principles are the same. So you have to have those constants in there. Your values never change, and your constants should not change either. And those are just, I think, priorities. And every business is going to be different. Your relationships within those business are going to be, helping you set those priorities. But if you are bouncing around back and forth and always trying different things, things. That's not a constant, right? It's good to be on the cutting edge and moving forward and doing new things, but not haphazardly. You have to do them with purpose, and you need to let people know what and why you're doing it. When I started different, side businesses, my wife knew, right? We had those discussions, and my children knew. When I started my first multi-level business, I was thinking about this today. I was at work by 8 o'clock and I didn't get home until 6:30, right? That was a long day. And then when I was building a secondary business, I came home, my wife had dinner ready for me, a change of clothes, and I was out the door. And my kids were typically in bed. I would wake them up, or they were almost, ready to go to sleep when I got done. And I did that for 2.5 years without fail. Mm. It was a sacrifice, but everybody knew what was going on and why. And then I was able to, take several years off, like the rest. So there was a reward. We were all working for that reward at the end. But communication, I guess, that constants in communication. But there were other things that I didn't violate. If there was a phone call from a family member, I took it. Didn't matter who I was with, what I was doing, I took the call. That was in one of those areas that was inviolable, right? Even when I was on city council, right? I'd be in a council meeting. There was a time I had a call, and it was always, if I had a text or something, I looked at it. If it has the urgent on it, I walked out of a city council meeting once. It's like, I got to go. I went over to the mayor and I just said, I got to go. And I walked out. Mm. There are things, you have to have your priorities straight, and nothing gets in the way of that priority list. So I don't know. Does that answer your question, kind of, sort of?
Yeah. And I love that you brought up communication. Rachel, I'm going to come back to you in a second, because we're talking about, families as it relates and correlates with being an entrepreneur. And you're the perfect example tonight, or every Monday night, you're at practice for your son, I believe. But what I like what you said, Rod, is the communication factor. Okay, so my girls are 7 and 9, and I want everybody to think about their own relationships, who's important in their lives, that your business or what your endeavors are affect them. And think about your level of communication with them. Okay, and your ability to convey to them your goals, your objectives, why you're absent, why you showed up at home at 6:30, you ate your dinner, then you ran back out the door, right? And the sacrifices that needed to be made to get to a point where you can do other things. Because if you're not communicating with your loved ones or people important to you, you're going to be damaging relationships. And at the end of the day, what's the most important factor? Why are you in business? It's for the relationships with your loved ones. And if you can't effectively communicate to them what you're doing and why, you're missing the mark. And that's really what the importance of tonight is. We're on the eve of a big holiday, and I'm hoping that everybody spends the entire day with their family and enjoy a holiday together, because they should be off. I guess unless you're in some of the service businesses. But it really got me thinking about how many entrepreneurs miss the opportunity to communicate with their family what their goals and objectives are, why they're working the hours that they're working, what they're doing, and how they're going to get to this finish line, and what that means for the entire unit. And my girls are so cute, because as many of you know, I'm working next door at this other ranch. I'm helping consult with them. And my daughter came to me about a week and a half ago. She's 9. She says, Daddy, can I go down there and get a job with you and help you out? She's 9. She's been watching along and understanding what this means. And if she can go down there and help, we're going to get to this finish line, right? And so that doesn't happen without communication, without letting people around you know what you're trying to do. So Rod, that was a perfect example of how you talk to your family and wrap them into what you're doing. Every single person in this group has somebody important in their life that communication is critical. So Rachel, real quick, my question to you is, how do you balance your successful marketing company all your clients, all your employees, and you're hunting new employees with being a single mom. I know you've got, a significant other in your life, which I'm sure he plays a role in helping out. But how do you balance those two things, raising two kids, that are very active, and helping them understand, what your job is and when you have to do it?
So, yeah, I mean, this all hits home, you guys. I mean, talking about family, holidays, communication, goals, all of it. Being a single mom is something that I think it's worth mentioning that my journey of being a single mom, it started when my daughter's the older one. She's 13. My son is 10, and I became a single mom when he was 8 weeks old. And it took me years to actually embrace the fact that I was a single mom and like talk about it and lean into it and like really embrace that that's who I am, because I'm showing them the best version of me as it relates to all the maternal things that they need. But a lot of times I'm setting an example of like things that a husband or a father or a male figure should be doing in their lives too. So like, perfect example, the other night, like we were at home, the three of us, and they're with me the majority of the time. And so I taught them how to barbecue. And that's typically a traditional husband or man thing to do around the house. But I had to learn how to do it because I wanted to offer that experience to them. So, right, I'm doing all the things with them and explaining them and to teach them like how to do it, right? And it could be that my son wants to go camping. Well, I'm gonna teach him how to do that too. So it's like I have to be all the things to them all the time, and I'm totally okay with it. I'm more than okay with it. I'm really loving it. Being a single mom is great, but it does require a lot of communication with the people around me and a lot of being honest with myself so that I can be honest with others. So segue into work, and then I'm going to bring that back together. But so the people who work for me, I always tell them, I communicate a lot with them about where I see it going, as if they were one of my children. Like, this is what I'm going to teach you. Like, I have different people who work for me, and I say, hey, listen, this is where in the next 5 years, this is what I want for you. And these are the things we're going to do to get you there. So they know that I have a plan for them. And it's not just an accident when all of a sudden then they get given a different client or a bigger role or bigger responsibility. They're like, okay, this is a direct route. I can see exactly where we're going because she's already told me that this is where she wants me to be. So I had that conversation with my employees I'd say at least 4 times a year. We have these like touch base meetings about their goals and objectives and where it's going for them. And where I'm bringing this all back around is I had a really honest conversation on Friday. I had to say to my team, hey, listen, you guys, these are all the clients we're working on. This is about how much time every client takes for every single one of us. And by the way, the biggest chunk of my time right now, 50% of my working time goes towards my kids. It's summer. They're in a junior lifeguard program that takes like 3 hours a day. And so if you incorporate the time to like get them there and get back to the house or whatever, like, because we ride our bikes there, it's like I've got like 2 solid hours of work during working time to get things done, which was really hard for me to admit. But I also had to be truthful with myself and truthful with my team and say, hey, listen, I'm going to get it done. I've never dropped the ball on anything, but this is the reality of the next 8 weeks. And so they were all like, hey, we totally get it. And thank you for being honest enough with yourself to tell us so that when we see these emails from you at 2 o'clock in the morning, because you're catching up on the day or jumping ahead, they're not surprised. They're not startled. They know I don't need a response right away, or I don't want to create anxiety for them. I want them to know that everything is good and constant and our clients are happy. Everything is good. It's just my schedule is going to be really wonky for the next, couple months. So, I think communication and honesty with yourself and with your team and your loved ones is critically important to success. And I love owning my own business. I couldn't work these hours if I worked for the man, just as much as I think our society has evolved and we're getting more comfortable with flex time and work from home situations. Like for me, I needed more than that, because as a single mom, I just couldn't make it work any other way. And my kids are really supportive, and my daughter is asking me to learn about like how to video edit, and my son is too, because I share it with them and what I'm doing. And maybe someday they'll want to go into marketing, or maybe they're going to decide that it's not for them, which is fine too. Either way, it's good. So anything else on
No.
that? Okay.
I'm
All
gonna
right.
give you another question. So here's what we're gonna do. Rod, I'm gonna ask you for closing thoughts on the most critical or important thing about being an entrepreneur as it relates to being a family person and or close relationships with other people. And then Rachel, my question for you after Rod will be about, I would love to know how much you share with your kids what you do on a daily basis. So, and then I'll wrap it up and we'll be done, guys. I know it's the eve of a holiday. So Rod, you're up.
All right. So the first thing that I will say is this: freedom. That's what you get. And Rachel, you hit the nail on the head by saying you wouldn't be able to do this if you were working for the man. There is a sacrifice that you put in, the risk and all that stuff, but the freedom, and here it is, it's 4th of July message, right? This is about freedom. Entrepreneurs understand freedom more than anybody else. And if you can get your family to understand that the benefit they get from you being free is they get more time with you, believe me, they'll understand that more than anything else you try and teach them. And the other thing that dawned on me while you were talking, Rachel, is, and even looking back over all the work experiences I had, the best employers, the best bosses, the best managers were also the best parents. Mm. And I worked for a lot of crappy people that were crappy parents as well. And they had crappy kids. So, there's something here. There's a core value in entrepreneurship with freedom and just being a good person that resonates with me and our culture. And we need to spread that around and spread the joy. And that's why we're here. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Rod. Appreciate it. All right, Rachel, how much do you share with your kids about your business? I mean, I know they know you're busy and you're off to work, but do you share with them what your day looks like and some of the things you're doing? I mean, how deep do you go with them?
To answer that, I also want to comment on something that Rod said earlier about like that entrepreneurial stress and stomach flip and pain of like, where's the next paycheck going to come from, or where's the next client going to come from, or having that slush fund, right? Like I do try to maintain a level of like consistent, solid, not stressed. Like I try not to let that fear or anxiety go downhill to my kids or to my employees or to my family. Like I have to be strong enough to handle it on my own, unless it's like desperately bad. Otherwise, they won't see it or know about it. I don't share that part of it with them. That's not their choice or their cross to bear. Like that's part of, they all put their trust and faith in me to deliver. I mean, I'm in charge of their livelihoods for the people who work for me and for my kids, right? And so that's a big honor. I feel that I'm blessed to be able to provide for them. And I don't ever want them to know unless I have to, I don't, the little stuff, I feel like I'll weather that for them. Kind of I feel like sometimes I'm a parent to the kids who work for me too, a little bit. Not that they're kids, but it's that sort of like protective layer. And then in the day-to-day of what the kids know about my job, I think they're too young to really know. They know very little. And I think more importantly, up to that point, my sisters don't really know what I do. My parents don't really know what I do. My cousins don't really know what I do. they were like, I don't know, Rachel does something with marketing. I don't really know what that is. And it's weird because I'm like, it's really cool. Like we build websites, we send emails, we do social media. And I don't know if that is enough for them, but like they don't really get it. And I can't really share it with them because as excited as I get when I talk about what's going on with like AI or like, what new programs are out there or what's going on, like they're more interested in the latest, parenting book or, they just have other interests. And so I don't really have a community of my close family or, close friends that get it. So that's kind of why the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate is so amazing, because I have you guys. You guys totally get it. So I think it's important for entrepreneurs to have this community where you can go to and get, whether it's you're getting inspiration or you're sharing your woes or just feeling like you're not the only person that's ever been through this. And that helps a lot.
All right, you just stole my thunder. Thank you. Let me wrap it up because we said we'd be brief, and sometimes that's not even possible, especially if you listen to Rod and my podcast that we do that's supposed to be 15 minutes, which is usually 30. But what I wanted to wrap up on this, entrepreneurs and people that we love and care about, our family members, our friends. I want to wrap with, this is a community and we care about one another. And I hope that we can grow this community in that. And, Palin has shared some of his goals with me recently, and I'm not going to share them here. He can share them if he wants on the back end. But, he's accountable to me now to a degree, and I care about his success and what he's working on right now, as well as everybody else that's in this group that has chosen to share what their next objective or goal is in their business. And I'm appreciative for that. So I want everybody to understand that that's what's great about a community of entrepreneurs is, as Rachel just said, hitting home with what I was going to say is we're here for each other to build that community because we understand the woes and the challenges, the ups and the downs. And sometimes that burden of stress can remain in this community and you don't need to bring it home because that's part of the job, to share it amongst like-minded individuals and not burden your friends and family. So I think we have a great thing here. As we've said, Rod and myself and Rachel, we're available to you as members. Please reach out. Let us know what your needs are, how we can help, how we can lessen that burden, or if nothing else, just help hold you accountable for what you're trying to succeed with. I will give a couple mentions of success. Jocelyn, who has not been on a call, but she watches these calls afterwards. She has a conflict at this time. She's celebrating her son yesterday or today, who has been following along in her business ventures, and now he's promoting something that he's selling. And so she's having a proud moment online. And I just love that she's been able to share with her son what she's doing in a way that has inspired him to do more. So congratulations to Jocelyn and her son and what they're up to. She's fairly a new member. I met her through some of the other groups. Also, they're not here tonight, but Bruce, Taylor, Sean Fuller, I have opportunities for all three of you. So I will be reaching out to you later this week if you watch this before you hear from me. All business opportunities. And that's the other thing I love about this community is when something comes my way and there is an opportunity, this group gets those opportunities first. You're my first calls. And then finally, congratulations to Samantha. She picked up a new client today, so she's on a roll. And any other success stories out there, I'd love to hear them. Rachel, you're kind of up and down, but I just love what we're doing here and the ability to celebrate one another, as well as be accountable and be here for each other. So that's all for tonight. Any closing thoughts, Rachel, or Brendan or Palin? Do you guys have questions before I wrap it up? Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I just want to say for anyone who does watch this later, 3 freebies I'm going to put in the back end of Y.E.S. For anyone who's looking for some free PR. There's 3 publications where you can nominate yourself or nominate a friend or nominate someone else in this group, and you can get some free PR. So that's the bonus for this week.
Love it. Good to see everybody. Thanks for joining tonight. And if you're listening later, thanks for listening. You can also catch the podcast. Okay, the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate podcast, and we'll see y'all next week. Thank you.
Good night.